good evening, everyone. My name is Thibault, and I represent a nonprofit called Climate Dividends. And tonight, I'd like to discuss the fundamental topic, the fundamental problem that we tackle with Climate Dividends. That is very simple. That is that right now, there are not enough equity investments going into climate solutions. If we want to reach global carbon neutrality, we will need basically two things. First, there's no way around it. We will need to consume less. We will need sobriété in French. And second, we will need to invest massively into climate solutions to completely rethink the way we move, the way we produce energy, the way we produce heat. And the fact that right now we are quite far from the mark in terms of equity investments needed into those solutions. The way we see things is that it's mostly due to the fact that right now there is no direct correlation between the positive impact of a company and its financial valuation, meaning that there is no direct financial premium that is linked to the ability of a company to avoid or remove CO2 emissions. And I'd like to take a quick example, a very concrete example, to understand why it's the case and how we could change the situation. So if we take an example of a climate solution, let's say thermal renovation, for instance, it basically has two types of impacts, of carbon impacts. First, negative impacts, which are the induced CO2 emissions. It's basically the carbon footprint, because it's very polluting to actually renovate a building. And second, the positive impact, so to say, which are the avoided and sometimes even removed CO2 emissions by the activity. Because yes, it's polluting to renovate a building, but it's usually also one of the best ways to drastically reduce the energy needs of the building and to save massive amounts of CO2. And right now, we don't have one robust, reliable, transparent, and most of all, standardized measure for that second point, which are the positive impacts, the avoided or removed CO2 emissions by a solution. So this puts us in a situation where we have, on one hand, the climate solutions who are actually struggling to value their positive impact and climate contribution because, and naturally so, the focus is mainly or only put on their carbon footprint and their ability to reduce that. And on the other hand, we have investors, equity investors, who are just lacking simple tools to know that they are channeling their money in the right direction and that they are building an optimal allocation of their capital on an impact point of view. So that's exactly why we created Climate Dividends. So Climate Dividends is an extra financial indicator that is designed to make measurable and valuable the climate contribution of climate solutions, and that in the most robust and standardized way. It is defined very simply as 1 ton of CO2 equivalent that is avoided or removed by the activity of the company equals 1 climate dividend that is issued by the company on a yearly basis and then distributed to the shareholders of the company. I really want to make it clear from the beginning that it's purely extra financial information, so it's not money, it's not an offsetting tool, it's not something that you can trade, it's just information. But how does that work very concretely? It mostly relies on a publicly available protocol that does not reinvent the wheel in terms of avoided emissions calculations, but mostly standardize the approach and the process that is composed of 5 steps, actually not 4. And first, the company needs to assess its eligibility. We have some eligibility criteria to ensure transparency and avoid greenwashing, basically. Second, the company needs to actually assess its avoided or removed CO2 emissions in compliance with the methodological guidelines of the protocol. And third, an independent third party will come in to audit this claim and to first validate that the methodology used is compliant with the requirements of the protocol, and also verify that the calculations that are made and the data that is used are basically right. The fourth step is the issuance. Once you have a positive verdict from an auditor, we, the association, will log the claim into a public registry, so it becomes transparently accessible, the methodology used. And at that moment also, we convert, so fakely of course, but we convert the tons of CO2 into climate dividends as one per one, as I explained. And the last step, not the least, is the distribution of climate dividends. We split the total amount of climate dividends issued by the company to distribute it to the shareholders of the company, depending on their percentage of capital ownership. So this whole process basically creates two main added value. First, we are standardizing a metric that critically needed to be, because standardizing these calculations are the only way to actually be able to make decisions based on that metric. So to make business decisions, to make investment decisions, of course. And the second value added is that we create a very concrete and direct link between the ability of a company to avoid or remove CO2 emissions and the equity stakes that are taken in that company. And we are laying out the foundations of a system where we can actually take into account this capacity of the company into its financial valuation, as a sort of the quantification of its climate goodwill or its climate premium. Our ambition is clear. We want to make climate dividends an internationally recognized and standardized indicator that is used both by institutions and the market to promote climate solutions and to redirect funding towards them. In just 2 years of pilot phase, we have managed to gather 30 users company, ranging from very early stage startup to more large groups like Decathlon, for instance. And collectively, they have issued 2.4 million climate dividends and distributed them to more than 100 investors. And something that we are also very proud of is that in just under 2 years of existence, we also have managed to gather formal recognition by key players in that very specific field that are the WBCSD, the G funds, or also the AFDI that some of you may know. But of course, that's not enough, and it's only the beginning, as Edouard said. And to make this ambition a reality, we need to go global and to scale massively. And for that, we have a 3-pillar strategy, but the main focus will be on boosting market adoption and to acquire more users, because as you can imagine, the value of a standard is quite directly correlated to the number of people using it. And for that, to make that real, we need only an additional 500k euros in donations for the next 3 years. So this means that with just about 500k euros from you, we could actually trigger a system-wide change on the basic definition and understanding of value creation to finally correlate the financial valuations with the positive impact of companies. Thank you very much.